You're listening to the Local Global Nevada, the podcast where we connect Northern Nevada to the world by amplifying immigrant and international voices, bringing clarity to complex issues, and fostering dialogue that strengthens community understanding and trust. Through local stories with global perspectives, we show how diversity shapes and enriches our region. Brought to you by the Northern Nevada International Center. I'm your host, Yulia Rajek. Hello, friends. Last year, NNIC provided support to 126 clients. Most of those individuals were resettled from the outside of the United States. And we have already spoken about the overall immigration journey and what it takes to get to the United States in our previous episodes. And if you haven't watched or listened to those amazing stories, please make sure you do after this episode. So many times, a person who is forced to leave their home country out of fear of being prosecuted has to make another very difficult decision. They need to escape by themselves, leaving their significant others behind, hoping they will reunite one day. Sometimes they don't even have this choice, and this is basically how the situation plays out. In this episode of L.G.N, we will take a closer look at the complex and sometimes and often very emotional process of family reunification through the lens of immigration law. For many immigrant families, the ability to be reunited with their loved ones is the most important goal of their immigration journey. Yet the regular pathways and legal pathways could be difficult to navigate. We're thrilled to welcome in our studio today Annie Allen, Chief Operating Officer at the Catholic Charities of Northern Nevada, and at the same time she is a fully accredited immigration legal representative. She worked a lot with our clients and she supported them with the different immigration processes. Annie will share with us today what family reunification process is and how it looks like, who is able to petition for their family members, and what are the processing times and the backlogs, and what are the most common challenges families encounter along the way. We will also discuss why is it essential to work with accredited immigration attorneys or accredited representatives, and what are the risks associated with unauthorized practitioners of immigration law. Finally, we will reflect on potential ways to address those challenges and what changes could be made to make this very difficult process and very emotional process of family reunification more humane and more accessible to those families seeking to build their lives together. So I'm thrilled to welcome Annie today. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, Annie. And please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit what you do at your work and why did you choose this path to become an accredited representative and provide those immigration services.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here today. As you said, my name is Annie Allen. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Catholic Charities of Northern Nevada. Formerly, before I took on this role, I was the director of what is now the Mother Cabrini Immigration Legal Services Program, and headed up that program, which consists of DOJ or Department of Justice accredited representatives. And so you mentioned that I am a fully accredited representative. We don't have any attorneys on staff, but the United States has carved out a special ability for individuals who are non-attorneys but have the character and fitness and knowledge necessary to competently represent individuals in their immigration processes to do so and to apply for this accreditation and renew it. It's applied for in 3-year chunks. So I initially obtained what's called partial accreditation, which meant that I was allowed to represent individuals in affirmative types of immigration cases. And so that consists of any applications processed or presented to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, commonly referred to as USCIS. And then in 2022, I believe, I received full accreditation, which allowed me to expand my practice to also represent individuals who are in immigration court, in defensive removal proceedings, and trying to fight their case there. So I could speak for a long time about why I chose this path. I would say, in reality, it chose me. I kind of stumbled into the work of immigration law and fell in love. I had the opportunity to work with individuals of such a variety of backgrounds and cultures. I got my degree from the University of Nevada in Spanish, and so I wanted to do something using the language that I had worked for so many years to obtain. And so I started working with Catholic Charities in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in their Refugee and Immigration Services Department, working with both refugees who had resettled in the United States and serving them and their families, and then also serving individuals who were on the path to apply for family members abroad. Maybe they were victims of crime here in the United States. So serving an array of different individuals. And it's been such a privilege to work with people. And, so selfishly, it's really been such a blessing to be able to work with people from different backgrounds and serve the community.
Yeah, and I think it's very rewarding just to feel this way, that you have something that you could provide to the people who are in need, and just make them happy.
Absolutely.
By obtaining some of the immigration benefits, right? And helping them reunite. Finally.
Truly.
Also, it is very important, and I want to notice to our audience that sometimes people do not differentiate the difference between the attorney and the legal representative. So thank you so much for clarifying that, because even though those people who are accredited representative, they don't have probably legal degree or like law degree, they're still very highly professional, because they're required to take all those trainings, immigration legal trainings along the way. And I would just say sometimes they're even more knowledgeable than some of the attorneys, right?
I think, it depends. There are plenty of attorneys that practice so many different types of law. There are so many different types of practices out there. And so realistically, when you're looking for an attorney or someone to represent you specifically in an immigration proceeding, you want to find someone who specializes in immigration law. With a DOJ accredited representative, that's their niche, because that's the only area that they can practice. There are plenty of attorneys that are in town, private attorneys who manage different types of immigration law and specialize in it. And so you really want to find someone whose focus is immigration law. It's a really challenging area, and I know we're going to dive into that later. But it's something you want to look for is what is their specialty, for sure.
That's right. Yeah. Another thing I would like to mention also, that this program overall, DOJ accreditation, was created to make the immigration services more affordable for those people like our clients at NNIC. And another thing I would like to mention to our audience is that NNIC and Catholic Charities work closely together in partnership, and we're very blessed to have you guys here as our partners as well, who help our clients just to go through all these complicated procedures in immigration and, finally reach the citizenship or lawful permanent residency. So thank you so much for doing that for us and with us as well.
Yeah, it's such a beneficial partnership, collaboration, and I love the ability that we've had to work together and to form this relationship so we can better serve our community. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I hope we will just expand in the future.
Me too.
Yeah. All right, Annie. So let's dive into the specific of our topic and episode today. So tell me a little bit, what is the reunification in general? What is it about, and how people apply for it, or?
Absolutely. So family reunification is kind of a broad term in immigration law, and it can be applied in the setting of a lawful permanent resident or an LPR, commonly referred to as a green card holder applying for a spouse or a child. It can apply to a U.S. citizen applying for a family member, or, as we want to focus on today, what the process is for an individual who entered the United States with the designation of refugee, and how they can apply for a spouse or a child. The same sort of process applies to asylees, or individuals who enter the United States and then apply for asylum and are granted asylum, and how they would reunify with family members in the United States.
Yeah, so we have clients, a lot of clients who would always come to my office and ask, oh, Yulia, please tell me, I want to bring my sister, I want to bring my brother. Obviously, we're not able to give any legal advice here, so I would refer them to you guys, and then you would kind of guide our clients on what to do. So who can petition for who?
That's a great question. And it really depends on your status in the United States. And that dictates what type of relationship you can apply for. And it's not as simple as I can apply for this person. There might be, there's a visa bulletin that dictates when certain visas are available and when you can act on that petition that's been presented. So the example you provided was siblings, right? Who can petition for a sibling? In current United States immigration law, only a U.S. citizen can petition for a sister or a brother. So unfortunately, if you are a green card holder or a refugee or asylee, there is no mechanism to apply through the family reunification process to have your sibling come join you in the United States.
How about the close family? So we also have many clients who had to leave the country, escape the country by themselves, and their families are still back home. They have young children, they have wives left behind. So how does this work?
So typically, the way that it works is that you would initiate the process with what's called Form I-730. It's a refugee relative petition. And that is, all that does is clarify the relationship. And in the situation of a refugee, you can file that refugee relative petition on behalf of a spouse or a child, an unmarried child under the age of 21. And so that's the initial process. There are secondary processes, and it really depends on where the beneficiary, that spouse or that child, is located at the time that they're filing. There are different rules with regard to children if they're petitioning for a parent. And so it really depends on so many different factors. And that's why it's so important to work with someone to kind of assess who you're looking to petition for and what that process looks like, because it gets really complicated really quickly. I think I could show you a whole table on the breakdown there, but it all starts with that Form I-730, that refugee relative petition, and that just shows the United States government this is the existing relationship. A common issue that we see, especially with spouses and different cultures, is if you're married to more than one person. In the United States, polygamy is a form of inadmissibility. Inadmissibility is a legal term that we use for someone is not admissible to the United States. So that gets really tricky really quickly, and you want to get some legal advice there. But if you're trying to petition for your second wife, you're not going to be able to do that. And so you have to have a legal marriage. Well, there are different countries that define marriage differently. And so you really want to make sure that you have the documentation necessary to show not just that the marriage occurred, but also that the marriage was bona fide. And what that means is that you have a couple who both of them entered into the marriage for love and not for the purposes of an immigration benefit. That can be demonstrated through children born of the marriage, through commingling of finances, through all sorts of different items. But you have to show that in addition to, hey, we entered into this marriage. Here's our marriage certificate.
So what to do for those families? So we work with some of the communities where like legal documents are not produced in their countries. So what to do for those, like with like those families, what they need to do to kind of prove that they're married and they have been in relationship?
That is a huge challenge, and it's something that I've confronted plenty of times with different families that I've worked with, especially for refugees who fled the country. They may not have access to a birth certificate. They may not have access to their marriage certificates. There are affidavits that we can obtain. They don't hold the same weight as one of those legal documents. The other challenge is if someone fled the country and they got married in their country of origin, where they're fleeing from, they may not be able to avail themselves to that government to try to obtain those documents. And reaching out to the government to try to obtain those documents could complicate their refugee status. And so that's where obtaining secondary forms of evidence, such as an affidavit, if there are other forms of proof of the marriage, if there are other witnesses that can attest to not just the marriage, but also the relationship. Another thing that I've done is for the kiddos that are born of the marriage, we have had to get a DNA test done and try to establish, hey, this is the blood relative, the child of the petitioner.
Yeah, seems like the process is highly complicated and very difficult.
It can be.
Yeah. So how long does it usually take for a person who is present in the United States to bring a family member and reunite with them? How long do you think it takes?
So that is a loaded question. And my legalese answer is always, it depends. It really does. It depends on the country where the individual is coming from. It depends on whether or not the beneficiary is in the United States or outside the United States. Are they in the country of origin? Are they in a refugee camp? There are so many factors. And then beyond those factors that I just mentioned, there are external factors. I remember when I was working in Baton Rouge, I had this mother who had been waiting years to reunite with her child, her son. And it had been a handful of years since the I-730, that first form that I mentioned, was processed, and now she was waiting on the State Department side. And there was an Ebola outbreak.
Oh.
And so she would call, and there was no travel authorized from the home country where her son was residing. And there were these external factors through no fault of her own, through no fault of his own, that caused delays in the process. Right now, one of the complicating factors that we're seeing is the travel ban, right, that the Trump administration has initiated for 75 countries. So there are a lot of individuals who are impacted by that through no fault of their own. They're filing the paperwork, trying to do things in the path that we've laid out for them, and that can cause cases to be delayed years. So take away all of those complicated factors I just talked about. It can still take a couple of years. I would say on average, when I'm talking to a U.S. citizen petitioning for their spouse, minimum, I tell them to anticipate a 2-year period. So, then we add in the complicating factors of, well, this is a refugee, and there might be some backlogs. There might be some challenges from transferring the case that initiates with USCIS and goes to the State Department. Does the file get lost? Is there a delay? Do we have to engage with additional support? So there are a lot of reasons that a delay could happen. I've seen cases take over a decade.
Oh my God.
And beyond that, you have to factor in a lot of times, how long were those families waiting before they even initiated the family reunification process? There was one individual I served who had departed his home country in 2005, and he started the process, I believe, in 2016. You know, the refugee process itself takes many years, and there are a lot of people who are waiting in camps for a long time. They finally get to the United States. They start their family reunification process.